Welcome back to the Deep Dive series where each and every episode we take a look at a different NFL team and come up with a realistic outcome and prediction for them going into the 2022 NFL season. Remember, at the end of this series, we're going to wrap this thing up in a nice pretty bow as we do a 2023 NFL mock draft based on my predictions. That'll be the draft order. But today we talk about the Cleveland Browns, a team with one big question mark, but we'll kind of get into that when we get into the offense. But again, we're covering these playoff contender teams, and this is a team that has a chance to be really, really good. Just kind of depends on what a suspension, looming suspension, maybe suspension. I don't know. Who knows? But what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know so, and let's go ahead and do the nitty-gritty, looking at the offense. This is a Kevin Stefanski, this is his offense. He is the play caller in Cleveland, but it has been very much a collaborative effort when talking about Alex Van Pelt, as he's shown success as a play caller going back to the Browns 2020 wildcard game. Now, this team is an outside zone blocking scheme that's very similar to like a Gary Kubiak way of doing things. Now, the Browns probably have one of the best offensive lines in football, and that's even without J.C. Tretter, as Nick Harris was a guy I was pretty high on coming out in the 2020 NFL draft. They also have probably the best running back duo in the NFL, debatably, but in Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So they got guys with very good vision. It just really works out to this offense. This is one of the best rushing offenses in all of football. When it comes to personnel use, they are known for having multiple tight ends on the field. They had 12 personnel 46% of the time last year, and 13 personnel, which is 3 tight ends, on the field 17% of the time, which led the NFL. The Browns, they were also in the top 10 when it came to how often they called play action on passing plays, at least that ratio. And obviously the biggest question mark coming into the season is, well, will Deshaun Watson be suspended, or when will he be suspended? How long a suspension could look? Is it coming this year? It's just something we don't know, we can't answer, and I'm really not going to try to take into account. It's just kind of a tough call at this point. They're currently, I think they started having hearings Tuesday. So, I don't know. We'll find out more. So I tried to at least adjust for the idea of maybe he might end up missing a few games, but we know Baker ain't playing another down for this team. At least he's adamant about that. So let's go ahead and scroll down, take a look at the other guys working. There is Jacoby Brissett, who's shown he can come in and be a solid starter. Just not a guy you want, more of a replacement level starter. Not a guy you want starting the whole season. Joshua Dobbs is there, a guy that I really like. He's just a stand-up dude, but really another guy that's if he has to come stand in for a game, I'm okay, that's fine, but not for a whole season. I feel the same way about Brissett, as I'm a Dolphins fan, and he came from Miami and kind of got to see that a little bit. But I think the biggest question, outside of obviously the biggest question, the Deshaun Watson suspension, again, think whatever you want about that whole situation. I'm not going to give my 2 cents about it. But how will he fit into this offense? I think that's the next viable question, at least based on looking at what he did in the past with Houston. Is he kind of compatible with this type of offense? Because he's a guy that hasn't typically wasn't used in play action a ton. He mainly operated in three wide receiver sets. But you got to imagine with Watson's mobility, man, it would be great to use him on rollouts and bootlegs. And I mean, if we're talking about play action, usually play action's a plus for a quarterback. So again, something I'm not too worried about. Maybe another thing is this is a guy that mainly likes operating out of shotgun, But he did operate under center a ton under Bill O'Reilly. So again, not worried. I would be more concerned with, like, okay, what about the personnel? Like I said, he mainly operated in 3 wide receiver sets. But to be fair, Houston, back in the day, they actually operated out of 12 personnel sets quite a bit. Actually, going back to 2018, they were in 12 personnel sets 35% of the time, which was second in the league. And then in 2019, they were in 12 personnel sets, third most in the league, and 7th most in 2020. So again, if you're primarily running out of 12 wide receiver sets, then it seems like, okay, Watson's had success with that, so no biggie. I could see why they went out and were like, okay, let's go grab this guy. I do think we will see 11 personnel when it comes to this squad occasionally. I think add in a guy like David Bell, a bigger receiver, more known as a route running technician, not really known for speed or anything, but what he could do after the catch, how just his body control in the air. But a bigger receiver that could kind of act as a blocker. So I mean, at Purdue, it was kind of like he was so like a willing blocker and whatnot, but still, with like his body type, it's like, okay, we don't mind operating in 3 wide receiver sets. If we put him in the slot, he could kind of act like a tight end too for us if we decide to run the football. So I do expect this offense to look much of the same, just with a few different wrinkles. Let's go ahead and talk about the bread and butter of this offense being the offensive line. And they got a stellar one. They bring back the same offensive line minus J.C. Treader. So Jedrick Wills has looked very good. We know Joel, I can never say his name right, but hallmark of the channel, mispronouncing names, get used to it. Joel Bitonio? I don't know. He's been great. He's been great almost his whole career. Wyatt Teller has been stellar since moving from Buffalo. I don't know what it was in Buffalo. Maybe there was something in the water that he didn't like. And then Jay Coughlin's been a very good addition as well. Nick Harris will be essentially a first-time full-time starter. After being drafted out of Washington, was a bit undersized, but a guy you would love in a outside zone blocking scheme, and that's exactly what they do in terms of depth. Their depth's all right. Like, is what it is. But it's important to talk about that because this was a team that did run into injuries on the offensive line. They got James Hudson, who was a bit of a project guy. You don't want to start right away, but did see some significant playing time last year and looked all right. But we know the upside with that cat. You got Ethan Posick, who's just was a dud in Seattle. I don't know if that really changes, but he is a plus athlete, so maybe a scheme change is exactly what he needs. Chris Hubbard has been fairly solid for most of his career when called upon. There's former guys that I used to like that really just haven't worked out in the NFL, like oh my gosh, the former Arkansas guard Froholt. So that's kind of I liked coming out. That just really hasn't been able to stick ever since being drafted, I believe, by the Patriots. But they bring in Dawson Deedon, who was a cat I think could play anywhere on the interior, mainly played center there at Texas Tech, was a big fan of. Brock Huffman, kind of assumed he wouldn't get drafted, but he was one of my favorite guys from the Shrine game out of Virginia Tech. Not really like a plus athlete, not overly impressive physically, just a guy that just does his job well. So I'm a big fan of those youngsters that they're bringing in. Drew Forbes has been with the team, feels like a decade, apparently only 3 years. Not a fan. But offensive line, I don't know. It doesn't... I mean, if injuries hit, yeah, I don't feel good, but they got, like... It's better than some teams, I'll just say that. So, offensive line, amazing. They have probably the best running back duo in the NFL in Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, what Kareem Hunt could do as a passing back as well, what he can do outside of the backfield. Not saying Nick Chubb can't do that. It's just he's not as versatile as a Kareem Hunt, but Nick Chubb is very good at what he does, takes contact well. Big fan. They also have Darnest Johnson, who's also been currently talked about as popular trade target for a team. Maybe if they don't feel great about the running back position right now, maybe he gets picked up by somewhere else. But I don't know. That's something yet to be seen. Now that they drafted Jerome Ford, who was someone I was exceptionally high on in this past draft, they're the 5th round. Perhaps they feel better about moving on and maybe getting something in return for Johnson. And then Demetric Felton's more of this scat back / guy you could throw in the slot. You could do a little bit after the catch. And yeah, no, it's amazing. I like what they got going on there. I guess we could talk about let's go to the tight end position before we go to wide receiver, because David Njoku is someone to talk about. A guy he's seen some high points last season, but there are times where he just goes complete phantom zone. And I know last year Baker was very inconsistent, also dealing with the injury. Now that you have a more, at least what you assume, a more consistency, more stability there at quarterback, maybe he's someone that can break out. They already went ahead, dished him out the money, so hopefully he ends up being worth it. Harrison Bryant's been a very good number 2 ever since coming out of Florida Atlantic. I was a huge fan of him in the draft. Miller Forstall is more of a blocking guy, and honestly, Nakia Griffin-Stewart, I couldn't tell you nothing about him. I really couldn't. They grabbed actually another Florida Atlantic player as a UDFA in Zaire Mitchell-Patton, who didn't really found it hard to just get playing time at Florida Atlantic last season after being a grad transfer from Notre Dame College. Not Notre Dame College. Very different. But dude that does have decent size, an alright athlete, so maybe he ends up being a guy that makes the roster. I don't know. You got Njoku and Harrison, Bryant. Those are your tight end 1, tight end 2. Got a nice blocking tight end in Forstall. When it comes to receivers, Amari Cooper, banger trade, cost them literally nothing. 5th rounder, basically got him for free. They also have Donovan Peoples-Jones, a cat that they have liked the last couple of years. Maybe he now takes that next step with a very good receiver across from him in Amari Cooper. It feels like the Jakeem Grant pickup means we won't see more Anthony Schwartz, as we saw him a little bit early in the season, but he is a guy who is this. He feels like a track player playing wide receiver, or a track star playing wide receiver. A guy that just he doesn't really do route running. He just I go real fast. So they bring him Jakeem Grant, who I think probably jumps him on the depth chart. Wims is a guy, I don't know. They have a few of these. I was gonna say they have a few UDFAs, but they drafted Michael Woods out of Oklahoma, who I thought was all right. Didn't have a draftable grade on him, but I did on Isaiah Weston, who is about this. He's a guy with a similar body type of DPJ, who tested out very well. I wouldn't be surprised to see him make the team. Mike Harley, he's a guy from the U, big Hurricanes fan, but I don't expect him to make the squad, so it is what it is. So I could see them sticking with Schwartz, Grant. Wims is so uninspiring. Honestly, I see Woods or Weston, maybe even both those guys making the roster. David Bell, I think, will probably be the guy that they want to utilize a lot in the slot when they go to 3 wide receiver sets. Just because of what he lacks as a speedster. Maybe just have him as a guy that could find the soft spots in zone and then create after the catch. But again, this is a team that'll probably be operating in 2 tight end sets anyway, so the guys we're going to be seeing are Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and then probably Jakeem Grant as your vertical threat. I think he's going to usurp Schwartz as Schwartz continues to develop. The big addition. It's Deshaun Watson, man. Honestly, if he sees the field, this team probably could be like a 12-win team. The question is, what's a suspension going to look like for him? Like, it's huge. So, I don't know. That's going to be an interesting talking point. But until we get a realistic answer on that, I feel like I'm just going to anticipate maybe we get no answer this year. Maybe he ends up missing the last bit of the season because maybe a decision comes through, much similar to like what they did with Ezekiel Elliott, where I think it was like a 6-game suspension, where I believe he ends up starting the season, and then they decide to uphold the suspension, and it like happened like halfway through the season. I don't know. It was a weird situation. It was long ago, and I trying to pluck this from my brain, and it's just it's back there. It's back there. I don't know where it is, but it kind of, I could see the similar situation though happening, where maybe Deshaun Watson the consequences. The punishment isn't laid out until he's already played maybe like half the NFL season. So I don't know. We'll see. Let's talk about the defense, because defense I'm super hyped for. We got Joe Woods as the DC, and he's a fun guy to talk about because he has a lot of different influences, a lot of different guys he's coached under, like Mike Tomlin, Vic Fangio, and Robert Saleh. He's a former defensive backs coach, and you can kind of see that he's kind of pulled from all those guys when it comes to what he wants to do coverage wise, as we've seen cover 3, cover 1, match quarters. So that's just something that's been really cool, that he's pulling from guys that for the most part have kind of like these, not vastly different, but a different way of operating things. And like we can talk about it right now when it comes to the blitz. As we know, Mike Tomlin's a very blitz heavy guy. Vic Fangio, he's more, I won't say conservative, he's more middle of the road when it comes to his blitzes, but he draws up very creative blitzes, and they normally hit home to Robert Saleh, who's like, I trust my front four, go get pressure. And Woods has kind of been more close to a Robert Saleh, but I could definitely see him maybe more in the this year, maybe more middle of the pack when it comes to blitz rate. So maybe closer to Vic Fangio, where he tries to get creative with these blitzes and just make sure these blitzes hit home. Because early on with JOK, they used him actually more as a blitzer, and he was pretty darn good in that role. So maybe they, especially now where like we're seeing a guy like Micah Parsons, where it's like, okay, a guy who basically plays edge and linebacker, maybe you use JOK, who again not nearly as physically gifted as a Micah Parsons, though I would say he was the number 2 linebacker in that draft right after Parsons. I was a big fan of JOK, but maybe you use JOK in a similar style. So I don't know, maybe we see more blitzing in that regard. When going back to the coverage, because they obviously moved on from Troy Hill, and it looks like probably it's gonna be Greg Newsome who steps up in the slot here, because they actually used him quite a bit at the slot at the end of the year. They add Martin Emerson this year in the 3rd round, which is probably going to be a Greedy Williams replacement after his contract is done. Keep in mind, this is a guy that did struggle with injury, but last year was able to be on the field and played exceptionally well. So now they have good depth, and they have a plan for the future after Greedy Williams goes bye-bye. So I do see Greg Newsome probably being in the slot. As we've seen this with defenses where they know how the NFL, how they utilize these slot receivers. Like we see Cooper Kupp freaking going on a complete tear last year and primarily playing in the slot. So we've seen teams start to put their best corners in the slot. Like we've seen Jalen Ramsey do it. We've seen my mind just blanked. I had a guy and it's gone. But Jalen Ramsey. Jair Alexander is going to be doing it at Green Bay. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me that they moved Newsome inside. When it comes to the defensive line, so if they are going to have to primarily win with a front four again, I'm just anticipating that they maybe get a bit more blitz happy. But if they are going to win just with their front four, they got a very good, probably like an easy top 5 pass rusher, Myles Garrett. They bring back Javion Clowney. They bring in Chase Winovich, who actually showed some promise his rookie year back in, what was it, like 2019, 2020? But kind of fell into the doghouse with Bill Belichick, so they bring him over. They draft a guy like Alex Wright, who I was very high on coming out of UAB. And then they bring some more pressure on the interior, bringing in a guy like Perion Winfrey, who has ridiculous length and great get-off. Taven Bryant, who just never really showed to be that penetrator in Jacksonville, and you're kind of like rolling the dice. Problem is, I think this defensive line, they were so-so in run defense last year, and I think it's going to be the same case. They didn't really add any meat or solid run defense when it comes to this defensive line, especially on the interior. They bring in Perion Winfrey, not really known for doing much against the run. He's more of a penetrator. Bryant, again, so kind of fluttered out. There's a lot of guys on this team that are sub 300. Like Jordan Elliott, I think is the thickest guy on the roster at 315. And even last year for him, a prospect that I really liked, he was so. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Sheldon Day played a considerable role, but he's at like 293. I think Roderick Perry is plus 300 out of Illinois, but he's a UDFA. I didn't even mention Isaiah Thomas, who I think he's in like that 260 range, 270 range, who's a solid run stuffer at an end, the defensive end. But again, if you're kicking him inside, it's for him to be a penetrator. Like, I don't see the run defense on this squad. I really don't. So, I don't know. It's a good thing that they got very good run stuffers at the second level, and Anthony Walker, who's just a solid vet. And dude's not even that old. I say solid vet. I feel like it feels like he's been in the league for a while, but I think he's only like a 6-year vet, right? Maybe I'm getting it wrong. Yeah, he's like only 26. Feels like he's been in the league forever. The dude's just solid. JOK, dude, he is a great guy. Like in terms of his closing speed, like the dude's gonna track a lot of guys down. Like I expect a lot of stops at the second level, but it's like I don't really expect much from the first level of this defense as run stuffers, especially teams that really like to go in the A and B gaps. Like I see problems for this defense. Pass rush looks good. They got a lot of penetrators on the interior. Didn't even really mention Tommy Togiai either. When it comes to their depth at like linebacker, I think it's quality. Like Jacob Phillips, if he could stay healthy, like he's a guy that could probably should see more time. Tony Fields, didn't really talk about him, but he's like a value brand. JOK, he was utilized very similarly at West Virginia, like JOK, and again a guy that could come in and play a similar role, just not be, the monster that JOK actually is. But those are really the only two guys. Taki is a guy. I guess that's worth mentioning. He's a guy that just really hadn't worked out in Cleveland. I love the secondary. Secondary is rich and full of talent. Like Martin Emerson's a cat that I loved. Denzel Ward, phenomenal. Greg Newsome was phenomenal last year. Greedy Williams, when healthy, looked really good last year. They also bring, I couldn't tell you much about Herb Miller, but Sean Jolly was a cat that I really liked at Appalachian State, but has slot size. Dude could play that role efficiently. He could also play, I think, a little bit in this at safety as well, but they got a pretty good safety duo in John Johnson and Grant Delpit. I really think that they could end up using Grant Delpit maybe more deep than as they've kind of preferred going with John Johnson, as I like John Johnson more around the line. But John Johnson's very solid as well. Ronnie Harrison has showed that he can step in and play if they need him to. I thought he was a very good addition from the Jags. The guy like Richard LeCount, I wasn't that high on him. He ends up going in the 5th round back in 2021. He felt like just J.R. Reed, a former teammate of his. They got a UDFA and what is that? D'Anthony Bell. He was West Florida, I believe. Let me just fact check myself. Anthony West Florida. Okay, yes, he was. I believe he was a transfer initially from where? Holy crap! I didn't know this cat was that old. Oh, okay. I don't know. Regardless, he's a guy that's more like this box safety type. Might not make the roster, but he's a guy there. Looking at actually I didn't even talk about the rest of the depth they have at corner, because Parnell Motley was a guy that I really liked at Oklahoma a few years ago. Good body type, and was a bit of a playmaker at Oklahoma. AJ Green I really liked at Oklahoma State, and then even Reggie Robinson. He kind of had a interesting early career trajectory, as when he was drafted by Dallas, he tried to move him to safety and then decided to move him back to corner before letting him go. So he might be a guy that they don't mind working on. So there's this secondary is just freaking mwah. I like it. I really, really like the defense. May not be wild about the defensive front when it comes to what they could do against the run. But this team when you live in a passing league, this team is built to stop the pass. So I guess let's go ahead and talk about my projected starters when it comes to the Cleveland Browns. And I do projected starters based on snaps, not your base formations. I only care about who's going to see the field the most, because that kind of dictates how you project this team to do. So that's what I do. So starting with Deshaun Watson, again, until his suspension's handed down, it's really hard to kind of project or predict what will go on with that. And then I have Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and I got, again, going with the 2 tight end set because they ran 46% of the time, David Njoku and Harrison Bryant. Then I got Jedrick Wills, Joel B., Nick Harris, Wyatt Teller, and Jack Conklin. A very good-looking offensive line. Going to the defense, I got Myles Garrett, Javion Clowney, Perion Winfrey, and Jordan Elliott, and then Anthony Walker, and then J.O.K., Denzel Ward, Martin Emerson. I think maybe he overtakes Greedy. I don't know. I'm also a huge mark for Martin Emerson, and Greedy Williams has had injury problems in the past. And then Greg Newsome there in the slot with John Johnson and Grant Delpit. When it comes to a prediction, I have the Browns sitting at a 10-7. That feels safe considering a potential impending suspension for Deshaun Watson. Now, I got this team going 3-3 in the division. Again, the NFC North I think is very, very close. And there's honestly, if you're in the AFC, you're gonna be playing a tougher schedule than anticipated. It's just kind of how it's worked out with my predictions. But I got them 6-1 against losing teams and 4-6 against winning teams. I guess we could go through the sketty. Looking at the squad here, they open with a pretty their first 4 games are pretty nice. You get the Panthers, which again that could be actually a tough team to beat. That defense could be top 10. It's just really what happens offensively with that squad. The Jets, I think, honestly, is a team that I think is going to be better than anticipated. That's what I wanted to look at Vegas betting odds. NFL win totals 2020. Here we go, Vegas betting odds. Currently the Cleveland Browns. Oh, do they not have the Browns? No, there's no way. They have to have the Browns up here. I don't think they have. They don't have like Vegas. At least Vegas Insider doesn't have odds for Cleveland Browns, which kind of makes sense. Regardless, you got Steelers, which I think the Steelers are going to be a tough matchup in the division. Division teams play each other normally pretty well, but then you got Atlanta, which is going to be one of the worst teams in the league. So first 4 games, I got them winning all their first 4. Also, that's because I think if a suspension's laid down for Deshaun Watson, it won't be till later in the year. I got them losing to the Chargers and then the Patriots, as well as the Ravens, but that's because they're playing at home. They get that win back later in the year. I got them beating the Bengals at home, and then, straight up, I'm a Dolphins fan. You come out your bye and you think you're gonna get a win? Heck nah, not against my Dolphins. I bet you people think, especially after did the Patriots yesterday and I had the Dolphins win both games against the Patriots, people are gonna think I got like the Dolphins at like freaking 15-2. That ain't the case. We're gonna see the Dolphins pretty darn soon. But got them losing to the Bills. Got them having a win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As keep in mind, man, like the Buccaneers, depending on this was a team that had health problems down the last stretch of the season, and they also gave up some bad losses every now and again. So I don't know. I guess it kind of depends on who's playing quarterback for the Browns. Got them being in Houston. That's funny that they would have Houston have Deshaun Watson return to Houston. I don't think nobody wants that. Got the Bengals winning at home again. Got the Browns getting their win back at home against the Ravens. Got them beating the Saints. They actually went quite a bit down the line here because they get Washington, and they actually lose at the end there to the Steelers. So, yeah, I feel like 10-7 is fair given just the questions we have with will Watson play or not. I mean, shoot, so much so, at least as far as I see on Vegas Insider, there's no betting odds for an over-under with the Cleveland Browns. So very, very interesting. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. We'll be back next Monday with, I'm going to go ahead and say it, my favorite deep dive of the series. I'm just going to say that. And we're doing it on the 4th of July. Nonetheless, I'll be gone all next week. Like from Monday to Friday, I'll be gone. But you will have videos. You'll have a deep dive Monday and Tuesday, which I'm going to record Sunday night. That way, it's at least the most updated I could have it. And then we're going to do a mock the mock on Thursday, which I will record Sunday, and it's not like things are going to be changing with the draft world. So first mock the mock of the year, by the way. First 2023 mock the mock of the year. I'm excited. But hey, y'all be easy, my friends. I'll see you next time. I totally butchered the end. Till next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.